My mother-in-law stood imposingly, adopting an intimidating demeanor and a stern gaze, and stated, "You can live in our house as a helper, but you won't be accepted as a family member." My husband and my sister-in-law said nothing about her attitude. Instead, they simply watched with smiles on their faces. They had used the company's funds to move into a luxury condo. The purpose of moving to this luxury condo was to live separately from me. Realizing this, I decided to tell them the truth. The reason why I was the one who could live in that apartment. My name is Kim. I am 33 years old, raising my 3-year-old son, Max. I met my 35-year-old husband, Ben, at a friend's wedding. I was a friend of the bride and he was a friend of the groom, serving as the organizer of the after-party. As the organizer, I had several meetings with him before the wedding to prepare for the bingo game and to make a surprise movie. After the wedding, Ben contacted me, saying, "I know the wedding is already over, but I wonder if we could meet up again?" I was interested, so I replied, "Yes, I would like to meet too." Our relationship then developed into a romantic one. About 2 years into our relationship, he proposed to me on my birthday. At that moment, my heart leapt with joy. Before getting married, I had never met his family, and so I had no idea what kind of people they were. One day, after our marriage had been decided, I met Ben's sister and his parents for the first time. This is Kim, who I mentioned before. We've decided to get married, so we came to say hello. Although brief, he introduced me to his parents and sister. "It's nice to meet you. My name is Kim. I'm sure I have many things to learn, but I look forward to getting along with you in the future." I was nervous but did my best to convey my feelings. Then, my mother-in-law said with a kind smile, "Kim, nice to meet you. Let's build a good relationship by helping each other out." My kind mother-in-law's words made me feel relieved, and I thought I might be able to get along well with my in-laws. However, later on, my mother-in-law made an unexpected remark. "So when will you and Ben start living in this house?" she asked. Currently, Ben works at the barbecue restaurant run by his father. His sister, Cindy, and his mother also work there. They operate the company as a family. His father is the manager, and his mother is the deputy manager. Their children work in the restaurant's hall and kitchen, along with other part-time staff. And very close to this barbecue restaurant is my in-laws' house. Cindy, who isn't married, and my in-laws live there, and there was apparently a discussion that we would live there as well. I was surprised and said I wasn't informed about us living together, and looked at Ben. He replied nonchalantly, "Oh, that's right. I suppose I didn't tell you. I was planning to move next month." I wanted to voice my opposition, but not wanting to be disliked by my in-laws and Ben, I quickly agreed to live together and started life with my in-laws. As we were living together, I had to quit my previous job and, while looking for a new job, my father-in-law invited me to work at the family-run barbecue restaurant. One day, when the restaurant was quiet and we decided to close early, the family gathered for a meal. They suggested, "Kim, since we finished early today, let's all have dinner together. Of course, you'll be the one cooking, right?" I asked. "Wait, you mean I'll be cooking for 5 people by myself?" Although I was a little taken aback, I didn't turn them down and began cooking diligently. When mealtime came, I served pumpkin stew, fried chicken, soup, and salad at the dining table. However, my father-in-law frowned upon seeing the dishes and muttered, "Are you expecting an old man to eat fried chicken? It's heavy on the stomach." Following that, Ben also said, "Actually, I don't really like pumpkin." Cindy added, "The taste seems a bit bland, maybe?" The family continued their critiques. I apologized hurriedly. "I'm sorry, I should have thought more. I'll improve next time." But then, my mother-in-law added insult to injury, "Kim, the food is bland and the menu is terrible." She then sought agreement from the family with a laugh. "My cooking is better, right?" The rest of the family, excluding me, began to praise her. "Yeah, Mom's cooking is the best. I can eat pumpkin if Mom makes it. Mom's seasoning is always perfect." Despite my efforts to quickly prepare a meal for 5, I was neither complimented nor thanked. unlike my mother-in-law, which made me want to cry. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law looked pleased to hear these words. Then, one day, while I was serving customers at the barbecue restaurant as usual, a loud noise came from the kitchen, followed by my mother-in-law's scream. Hearing her scream, Ben and I rushed to the kitchen and found my father-in-law collapsed and unconscious. We closed the restaurant quickly and headed to the hospital, but my father-in-law passed away unexpectedly. He had suffered a heart attack. After my father-in-law's sudden death, my mother-in-law's health deteriorated rapidly. She retired from work, following advice from Ben and Cindy. "I'll be leaving it all up to you. Kim, can you take over my job?" she asked me, and I assumed her role. My husband, Ben, became the manager of the barbecue restaurant, replacing his father, and Cindy was appointed as the deputy manager. A year after my father-in-law's death, I successfully gave birth to a baby boy. I named him Max. Facing a tough economic period, I focused more on work, but the number of our customers had been decreasing. Cindy asked with concern, "Ben, don't you think our customers have gone down recently?" "Yes, it's probably a slow period now." "No worries, we're managing it," Ben confidently reassured her. Hearing Ben's words, Cindy smiled happily. "You're right. Just as you said, brother, we have nothing to fear." I couldn't understand their baseless confidence, but I kept quiet. However, the number of customers did not increase, and the part-time staff left one by one, leaving only the family to run the restaurant. Seeing Ben and Cindy with their confidence, I felt anxious. There used to be around 40 customers at lunchtime and about 60 in the evening, but recently, this number had been cut in half. While having a meal with the family, I suggested to Ben, "As Cindy said, I feel like our sales have been dropping lately. Since Max is here too, should I start distributing flyers or do some promotion?" However, Ben harshly scolded me. "It's impossible for you to get involved in management. Don't do anything unnecessary." My mother-in-law also looked at me coldly and said, "Kim, you know nothing about business. Are you planning to interfere in our management?" Cindy joined in and also spoke her mind. "Maybe there's a problem with Kim's customer service. Come to think of it, I feel like sales have dropped since Kim started handling them. It has to be related." She said this, slapping the table for emphasis and blaming me. I didn't expect to be accused of being blamed for the sales issue. What an arbitrary thought. I felt anger welling up inside me, but I suppressed my desire to argue back. "I'm sorry." I apologized softly and decided not to distribute flyers. Still feeling uneasy, I secretly started a side job for the sake of Max. Even if there were no sales from the company, I wanted to have my own source of income. I could work hard for my beloved son, Max. I had always been good at making surprise movies for my friends, so I started a video editing side job. I advertised online surprise movies created at an affordable price. After a while, I received my first job request. I was happy to be asked, and I found the video editing work enjoyable and productive. With each completed project, the work requests kept increasing. I started handling a wide range of genres, not just surprise movies, but also YouTube editing and short clip editing. Since it was a field I originally loved, I didn't feel that it was hard and instead felt fulfilled to be earning an income. Then one day, my mother-in-law spoke to me. "Kim, I heard you've been doing a side job recently." Such an optimistic daughter-in-law. "Do what you want, but don't slack off on the barbecue restaurant's work." She said this sarcastically. I wouldn't do that. "Of course, I will do my main job properly," I replied. My mother-in-law left with a dissatisfied home. On another day, she said, "We have something to do, so we'll be out. Kim, please prepare dinner," and left with Ben and Cindy. That day was extremely hot, and I was alone with my son, Max, so I planned to let him play in the pool. After preparing dinner, I set up the pool, filled it with water, and played with Max. When a package came, I hurriedly picked up Max to go and get it. During that time, my mother-in-law and the others returned. "Kim, that package is mine. Give it to me right now," she said, forcefully taking the package from my hands. Then she handed me a piece of paper. Here, this is the receipt. It seemed she was making personal purchases and accounting for them as business expenses, despite the tough business situation. Cindy entered the house saying, what a feast. I can't eat anymore. Apparently, they had gone out to eat. Wait, didn't you ask me to prepare dinner? I asked my mother-in-law. She replied, what are you talking about? I meant that we were going to eat out. I meant you should prepare your own portion. Oh, what? Did you prepare for everyone? How foolish. And here, this is a receipt. Make sure to record it as an expense. My mother-in-law said this condescendingly, laughing as she handed me the receipt. It seemed they had used company expenses for their meal out. I felt angry, thinking, how could this be? After I prepared everything. But then I reconsidered. Indeed, I had been told to prepare dinner, but they never specifically said for everyone, so I decided to suppress my anger. After a while, Ben and Cindy were sitting on the sofa in the living room, passionately discussing their future plans. Suddenly, a scream came from the balcony. Arva. What is this? It was my mother-in-law's voice. We rushed to the balcony and found her soaked, having fallen into the pool. I barely managed to hold back my laughter. However, Ben and Cindy were clearly worried. Are you okay, Mom? What happened? Oh, I didn't expect there to be a pool here. I tripped over the hose when I was going out to the balcony. She seemed shocked and in pain. At that moment, Ben and Cindy glared at me, scolding. Kim, why didn't you clean up the pool? Leaving it like that is dangerous. My back hurts. I might catch a cold. My mother-in-law said, still shaken. Kim, you are the worst. She expressed her anger, and I was blamed by everyone around me. Flustered, I explained, I'm sorry. I was letting Max play in the pool. And then the delivery arrived. And after that, you all came back. But no one seemed to listen or pay attention to my explanation. Later, my mother-in-law said she had an important discussion and gathered everyone at the dining table. With a serious expression, she said, I've thought things through. After today's incident, I'm scared to live in the same house as Kim. She said this dramatically with tears in her eyes, looking down. Surprised, I exclaimed, what? Scared of what? I think today's incident was a trap set by Kim intentionally. And she's always harsh towards me. I can't stay with Kim any longer. So, I'm leaving this place, she declared. Following this, Cindy added, then, I'll go too. I can't leave Mom alone, and put her hand on my mother-in-law's shoulder. Confused, I felt relieved inside, thinking that finally, life with just Ben, Max, and me would begin. However, Ben made a shocking statement. Then, I'll go too. I'll live with Mom and Cindy, he declared. Wait, what about our son? Why are you doing this? I was surprised and grabbed his arm, but he shook me off forcefully. Blaming me, he said, it's because you cause problems. Mom is in trouble. From now on, we'll live as a family of 3. You stay with Max. I'll come to visit him. My mother-in-law, with tears in her eyes, said, I didn't know my son and daughter were so kind. And hugged them both. She then turned to me with a mocking smile. Her true intentions became clear, and my anger only grew. During my absence, it seems that the family's discussion continued. I heard that my mother-in-law, who doesn't understand business or money matters, used the company's funds to contract a luxury condo. I wondered, why a luxury condo when sales are falling? But since I was already separated from them, I said nothing. It was no longer my concern. 2 weeks after they moved into the luxury condo, I heard that the shop's food supplies were mistakenly delivered to their house, so I went to pick them up. Now that you're here, why don't you take a look at our new home? It's really wonderful. My mother-in-law invited me in, and I toured the condo. It was a lovely condo with a spacious balcony, great view, and conveniently connected to the station. There, my mother-in-law said with a sense of superiority, Kim, you must want to live here too, right? If it's as a helper, I don't mind letting you stay. Ben and Cindy didn't say anything but just laughed and looked at me. My patience had reached its limit. It's a joke. I can't live with these people anymore. My mother-in-law's remark was the final straw. Don't worry, I have decided to get a divorce, I declared to her. She was shocked. What? Ben and Cindy rushed over. Ben, Kim is saying she wants a divorce. What's this about? My mother-in-law was confused. Why a divorce? Ben exclaimed in dismay. I calmly said, I can't see a future with you and your family. Ben, you don't love me, you only love your mother, right? Ben replied, what do you mean? Of course, I love my mom. I was astonished by his response. Well, anyway, I'm getting a divorce. Oh, and just to let you know about Ben and Cindy's salaries. I said indifferently, Ben earns $400 a month, while Cindy gets $300. Ben and Cindy and my mother-in-law were shocked and trembled in surprise. That can't be. It must be a mistake. My mother-in-law denied it vehemently. I calmly explained, showing them the sales records and their salary details. You realize that the number of customers has decreased significantly recently, right? There were months with hardly any customers at all. Did you still think you were earning enough, like when your father was here? I asked with a smile, but we can still pay the rent for this luxury condo. My mother-in-law exclaimed angrily. No, you think you have that money because I was putting the income from my side job into the company. It has nothing to do with your management. I replied calmly. I had achieved great success with my video editing side job and had been paying the $8,000 rent for the luxury condo with that income. My mother-in-law teared up, only $700 a month with the both of them. Truly shocked. I was curious why sales had dropped so much and did some research. Then I found this. I said, showing my smartphone screen. It displayed negative reviews of the barbecue restaurant run by Ben and Cindy. The meat at this barbecue restaurant is bad and tough. The glasses are dirty. Are they even washed properly? You can constantly hear talking from the kitchen. It's uncomfortable. I'm concerned about the manager's appearance and the smell of cigars. The hall staff's hygiene is poor. All were bad reviews, accompanied by photos spread on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Cindy, as a hall staff member, your long nails are a problem. And your cleaning is too sloppy. Such carelessness, coupled with your clinginess to family, and being mean to your brother's wife, makes you unattractive. It suits you to be alone. Is that why you're unmarried? I pointed things out to my sister-in-law. I said what I needed to say directly. Cindy trembled with anger and glared at me. Then she started complaining to Ben. It's all your fault, Ben. I told you not to change the meat types. That's why everyone is complaining about it being tough. Ben didn't stay quiet either, and the two of them started arguing loudly. My mother-in-law tried to calm them down, but they began to vent their frustrations on each other. I won't be involved with you anymore. I also have no intention of giving you any of the money I earned. Enjoy living on your $700 monthly income, I said and left the house. When I returned to my parents' house with my son, Max, my parents were surprised by our sudden arrival. After hearing about everything that had happened, they said, "You endured a lot," and welcomed our stay. I sent the divorce papers to Ben, and our divorce was quickly finalized. Afterwards, my mother-in-law and her children couldn't pay the high rent and had to leave the luxury condo. Furthermore, the reputation of the barbecue restaurant worsened, and eventually, it closed down. Now, Ben and Cindy, both over 30, are unemployed, working various part-time jobs. My mother-in-law is also working a part-time job, cleaning, and all three are trying their best. The once close-knit family is now blaming each other. The barbecue restaurant failed because of you, Ben. The divorce is Mom's fault. Dad's shop was ruined because of the two of you. They argue every day. I thought to myself, they got what they deserved. Meanwhile, I turned my video editing side job into my main career and expanded the business. Now, I'm invited as a lecturer to many schools and have become a notable entrepreneur in the media. My side job has become my main job, and every day is fulfilling. Currently, I live happily in a luxury condo in New York City with my beloved and precious son, Max. Kim, even though you are my son's wife, you're an outsider. Please do not attend my husband's funeral. That's right. You are unnecessary. I alone, as the eldest son, am enough to handle this. I was appalled by their selfishness and became speechless. Sometimes, ignorance is bliss, I murmured quietly, making sure the two of them couldn't hear me. I, Kim, am in my prime working years at 42. Since graduating from university, I have been employed at a certain company. Then, I accepted a marriage proposal from my university sweetheart, Joshua. I first met Joshua in my second year of university life. He was 2 years younger than me and joined the club I was a part of. Thanks to his vigorous pursuit, we started dating within a year of meeting. After that, our relationship went smoothly, and we had a wedding after he graduated from university. Since then, I have been dedicating myself to my job. That's because the company I work for was founded by my father-in-law. The kind yet dignified father-in-law built up a major corporation with his own hands, and I respected him greatly. I didn't realize Joshua was the son of a major company's CEO until we got married. This was because he lived alone in a worn-down apartment when he was in university and supported himself with part-time jobs. According to my father-in-law, he deliberately let his son experience a tough life to teach him the harshness of life. He is an only son and the sole heir. My father-in-law surely wanted his son to mature as a working adult. However, my mother-in-law, his wife, had a completely different view. Kim, it's clear that you want to be acknowledged by my husband, neglecting household duties for work. I have no such intention. I manage both work and home affairs well. Look at this. See, there's so much dust. My mother-in-law accused me while tracing the dust in the hard-to-reach gaps of the furniture with her finger. And you got your job through connections, didn't you? Yet, you're so proud of yourself. My mother-in-law sighed dramatically and shook her head in disappointment. My husband, who was next to her, agreed with her words. She's right. If I were in that position, I would have been promoted long ago. After all, I am the heir of the company. Could you save those comments until you actually work? How dare you say such a thing to Joshua? You can't learn about the world by staying in the same place. My husband chose part-time jobs over a full-time position, even though he was the heir to my father-in-law's company. The fact that he had not settled into a permanent job even as an adult was a problem in my eyes. Yet, my mother-in-law, his mother, continued to coddle him. Gaining experience in various workplaces is important, but isn't it time to learn about your father's business up close? Don't get cocky. Who do you think supported you when times were tough? You repay kindness with ingratitude. I'm leaving. It's depressing to have such a daughter-in-law. My retort seemed to have angered her. My mother-in-law stormed out of the house, yelling loudly, "You really know how to provoke her anger, Kim. Joshua, it's almost time for your part-time job. Yeah, it's a hassle, but I should get going." Reluctantly, my husband got ready and left for work. Alone in the quiet room, I reminisced about the early days of our marriage. In my second year at the company, my mother-in-law declared loudly in front of the company's employees that I married her son for money. Furthermore, she criticized my father-in-law for apparently favoring me as his son's wife and claimed that all my work achievements were due to nepotism. After that, my mother-in-law continued to spread false stories around and left like a storm. Everything my mother-in-law said is false. Please believe me. From that day on, the harmonious workplace relationships changed dramatically. At the workplace, I became someone to be avoided and couldn't help but feel constrained every day. Yet, my mother-in-law's claims were unfounded. Despite being pushed by her strong assertions, my trusted colleagues began to sense the inconsistency, and ultimately, the situation was resolved by my father-in-law. My past achievements helped regain the trust of my colleagues. Really, those times were tough. Lately, maybe because of my age, I started talking to myself more often. The support I hoped for from my husband, Joshua, was non-existent as he always sided with his mother. When we discussed the future, he boasted that there was no need for him to get a permanent job since he was to take over the business. I prepared dinner for such an unchangeable husband today as well. The next day, while I was at work as usual, A loud noise came from the CEO's office. Suspicious, I went to the CEO's office and witnessed my father-in-law clutching his chest in pain. Boss, are you all right? I rushed over and used the phone in his office to call an ambulance. I changed my plans on that day and informed my mother-in-law and Joshua through the secretary. If anything happens, please let me know, I told the employees as I heard the sound of the ambulance from afar. Following the rapid instructions of the emergency staff, I headed to the hospital. Father, please don't give up. The doctor will see you soon. My father-in-law barely survived after receiving swift treatment at the hospital, but the situation remained unstable. When it seemed like calm was restored, my mother-in-law and Joshua appeared in the hospital room and accused, "You were there. How could this happen? This is your fault. Unforgivable. How can you be so incompetent? What are you even good for? Do you understand what will happen if Dad doesn't regain consciousness?" They attacked me with words and even pushed me physically. Noticing the commotion, the nursing staff intervened to calm them down, but they were so distraught they resisted. Eventually, the two were escorted out of the hospital room. Their fading shouts quieted down. They seemed to have been sent home in their confusion. A few days later, sad news arrived. My father-in-law had passed away. When his body left the hospital and arrived home, my mother-in-law and Joshua immediately rushed to him. "Why did you go so suddenly?" "Dad, this must be a bad joke, right? Please say it is." They were in tears in their farewell to my father-in-law. I approached my mother-in-law and gently stroked her back. Then she said, "Kim, I am thankful." I was inwardly surprised by her gentle demeanor after being showered with terrible words all this time. "I'm sorry. Maybe there was more I could have done." As I apologized, my mother-in-law clung to me, sobbing. After they finally calmed down, we had the chance to discuss what to do next. However, during the discussion, they began to show an unusual excitement. My father-in-law had left behind a huge amount of money and a high-rise condo as an inheritance. Hearing this, their sorrow vanished, and they were overjoyed, eyes shining. Amidst my astonishment, my mother-in-law made an unbelievable suggestion. "Kim, even though you are my son's wife, you are still an outsider. I would like you to not attend the funeral." Mother-in-law, what do you mean by that?" "That's right. A daughter-in-law is unnecessary. I alone, as the eldest son, am enough." "Joshua, why are you also saying such things?" I asked, dumbfounded, but they were already advancing their discussion. "Perhaps it's time for you two to separate?" "Yeah, I've been fed up with you for a while, and the timing is good. Kim, let's get divorced." "Wait, we can't talk about divorce so suddenly, especially not under these circumstances." As I protested, my mother-in-law looked at me coldly. "Kim, I'm telling you now, I've never liked you from the start." "Yes, I'm aware of that. You're just after money, aren't you, Kim? That's why you got close to Joshua. I don't want to give someone like you any inheritance rights. Stop being involved as though you're a member of my husband's family." "Mother, I have denied that misunderstanding many times, haven't I? If it's about the property, aren't you and Joshua the ones fixated on it?" "Be quiet. You're such a shameless daughter-in-law." "Joshua, you've agreed to a divorce, right?" "Yeah, I'm fine with that." "Joshua, is that really how you feel? Aren't you just unable to contradict your mother?" "That's not it. The truth is, I've always wanted to get divorced, but I just couldn't find the right time. There were also financial circumstances in relation to the company. But now, with Dad gone, the business is in my hands. Your presence is no longer necessary." "No way." Seeing my disappointment, my husband and mother-in-law started laughing loudly, as if enjoying my sorrowful state. All my patience and effort seemed in vain, and I felt tears welling up. But I held back the tears and showed a dignified attitude. "I understand. Let's get divorced and I'll have nothing to do with your family from now on. I won't ask for anything from you." "Oh, you're more understanding than I thought." "Really? That's great." Ignoring my emotions, my husband and mother-in-law showed their happiness right before me. Sometimes, ignoring is bliss. I muttered this to myself, pitying them, making sure they couldn't hear me. 2 days later, my former father-in-law's funeral was held. According to the secretary who attended the wake, while the attendees expressed their condolences, only my ex-husband and former mother-in-law seemed somewhat unsettled. Their inappropriate behavior didn't seem to garner any sympathetic reactions from those around them. I heard the details of the funeral from the secretary and rushed to the venue. Upon arrival, my ex-husband and former mother-in-law were greeting the visitors. Their smiles confused many people, as they seemed out of place at a funeral of their own family member. This was especially true for my former mother-in-law, who was making inappropriate remarks such as, "Please take care of Joshua, the heir of the company." Although I was shocked, I went to the reception with the secretary and expressed my condolences. Hearing this, the two suddenly changed their expressions and reacted loudly. "Why are you here? You promised not to come to the funeral," they said. Surprised, I replied angrily, "That promise was as a family member. I came here as a representative of the company." They were confused as I told them, "I will discuss the details when the will is revealed," and entered the venue. The funeral proceeded as planned, and I paid my respects to my former father-in-law. However, the two kept glaring at me during the funeral as if waiting for a chance. After the funeral service ended, we moved to another room for the reading of the will. With my ex-husband and former mother-in-law's eyes fixed on me, the reading of the will began. Here, I state the will of the deceased, $1 million, all rights to the high-rise condo, and the position of the next CEO are all entrusted to Kim. Please manage the property carefully as instructed by the secretary. It is also written in the document, and I want Kim to check it with utmost care. Joshua and Diane must leave the house and refrain from any contact with Kim and other relatives. This is my final wish. After the secretary finished reading the will, the two of them who were sitting across me were stunned, their mouths agape, unable to grasp reality. "Did you know that Dad had been suffering from a heart condition for some time?" I asked. "What are you talking about?" "I had no idea," replied my former mother-in-law. "Is that so?" His medication had increased recently. The secretary and I knew, so we advised him not to overdo it. "Don't lie. Even if that's true, it's irrelevant to you. Obviously, my son here is the next CEO. Even so, your brazenness amazes me. Furthermore, it's unacceptable that the secretary is the one announcing the will." Although his face was pale, I noticed my ex-husband, who was sitting next to my former mother-in-law, nodded in agreement as she continued to argue. "It is relevant, actually. Dad had prepared for unexpected events and made an official will. This can be viewed by the stakeholders to prevent any wrongdoing. It is more appropriate for the secretary, who was trusted and appointed by him, to read it, as advised by the town hall." "What is this official thing?" "It's a will that's managed properly at the public notary's office." Apparently, the two were unaware of the various types of will. A normal will requires time-consuming disclosure process at the family court. But my former father-in-law must have been concerned about the impetuous nature of my former husband and mother-in-law. A notarized will, which he submitted to the notary's office when he was alive, does not require judicial probate, and its effects are immediate. "You keep lying. You approached us for the inheritance, didn't you?" "I will invalidate such a will that's full of lies. Now leave." Despite my exasperation at my former mother-in-law and ex-husband's constant attempts to exclude me, I chose my words carefully. "I'm telling you there was a witness." "And where is this witness?" "He's right here." I pointed out the secretary to my uncomprehending former mother-in-law, answering clearly despite my irritation. His testimony matches the will, and I have been named the next CEO, not Joshua." "What are you saying?" My former mother-in-law, still unwilling to accept it, tried to lash out at me, but the secretary stopped her. Then, my equally perplexed ex-husband intervened. "But the inheritance is supposed to be for me and Mom, right?" "Unfortunately, you are mistaken. The high-rise condo was purchased as company housing so that employees could work efficiently without financial difficulties, as arranged by Dad. The $1 million of his private wealth is intended to be a fund to support employees in case of future need." I am the one entrusted with managing these as the next CEO. This is all clearly stated in the document he signed and entrusted to the secretary. No way. My ex has been collapsed on the spot, crestfallen. My former mother-in-law lost her momentum and stiffened. Since it's a notarized will, Diane, no matter how much you deny it, it cannot be changed. If it's hard to believe, you can verify it at the city hall. I can't believe this. And why do we have to leave the house? To the resolute former mother-in-law, I said, despite Dad's failing health, his son had not become independent yet and was cruel to me, who supported him every day. Diane, you spent Dad's wealth freely and bullied me daily. Dad was always concerned about me and mentioned that his son and wife were a disgrace to the family. Diane, faced with the truth, lost her strength and sat restlessly beside her son. I will cover Dad's funeral expenses. What happens beyond that is up to you two. I offer you my condolences. Then, I left the crestfallen pair behind. A few months after the incident, the two could not sustain themselves financially and had to move out of their residence to a small, old apartment. Joshua decided to find a job but apparently continued to change jobs frequently and was eventually turned down even at interviews. My mother-in-law also managed to find a part-time job, but due to her high pride, she couldn't work efficiently and seemed likely to be fired soon. I heard that she assaulted a staff member at a public institution, causing a commotion, which led to police intervention. This story spread among relatives, and she became isolated. Just as my former father-in-law wished, they had to make a living on their own, and their daily disputes were endless. The secretary and I are concerned that their neighbors may call the police because of the noise. I was extremely busy for a while with the transitions at the company, but lately, I've finally regained my calm. I've achieved a life where I feel mentally and physically relaxed. While the duties of a CEO are not easy, the relief of finally being free from those two has eased my stress, and my skin seems to have improved. I intend to continue to protect and grow the company that my former father-in-law built. I am thoroughly satisfied with my current life.